Hey, hi, hello, how's it going? So, have you ever heard about a game and only good things about it? So you assume it must be the greatest game of all time, and then when you play it, it's not? Are we just ignoring this practice and this issue over here? Did we even play the same game? Because that's my experience with Tales of Arise. What's up? It's your girl, Lady Pelvic of Pelvic Gaming, and apparently I played a different version of Tales of Arise than everybody else. Because everybody sung its praises, and when I got to it, I was kind of like, huh? Okay, you like this, huh? You think this is like the greatest Tales of game so far, do ya? Okay. Didn't really resonate with me, but we'll get into why. The story opens up with the history of Dahna and Rena. Dahna was brimming with life when the Renans came down and subjected Dahna with the aid of Zeugles, aka monsters. Stupid name for monsters, I know. This has gone on for 300 long years. Okay, cool, very dark tone to set things off. I'm loving it. You're Alphen, a masked slave with no sense of pain or memory, and you're on freight duty, and an accident happens. Among the cargo is a bound Renan woman that inflicts devastating pain to anyone who touches her. She is freed. Alphen, tired of being under Renan rule, takes this opportunity to break free. With the help of a woman named Xion and Zephyr, the leader of a resistance group known as the Crimson Crows, you fight off the Renan soldiers. But it was only possible with the help of Xion's Fire Master Core, in which the blazing sword emerged. Since Alphen can't feel pain, he wields it going forward, effectively utilizing it to free other regions of Dahna. This also aligns with Xion's goals of killing all the lords or rulers of these sectors and claiming their respective elemental master core and putting an end to a Renan tradition known as the Crown Contest, a game in which Renans use the enslaved Dahnans to collect astral energy, and whoever has the most becomes the next ruler of Rena. Through the beginning regions, we gather our full cast of 6. Alphen, Xion, then Rinwell, a Dahnan mage, and the last of her people, Law, a young man who worked for the Renan Lord of Cislodia, Kisara, a slave knight who worked under Dohalim, the Lord of Earth, and Dohalim, the fallen Lord of the Earth Realm himself. Now, a crucial component in every Tales of game, or JRPG for that matter, are the characters. In all of the Tales of games I've played, there was at least one character I loved, one character I'd go up to bat for. In Arise, there was none. I didn't hate any character, but I certainly didn't love any character either. They each had their moment, and afterward, they kind of deflated into a one-note character. If I had to give kudos to one character, it was Rinwell. She had the biggest change, no doubt. I liked the dynamic cast at first, a mix of Renans and Dahnans who are kind of at each other's throats. They're uncertain since they're traveling with the enemy, yada yada, and later they all come together and acknowledge one another as individuals, yes, but as individuals, they were so boring. Alphen is a fine protagonist, not too gotta help everyone, but not aloof. Xion is literally the tsundere. Rinwell is the bratty girl, kinda tsundere 2.0. Law is the comic relief. Kisara is mom, and just mom. Dohalim is the biggest outsider, being a Renan lord and having everything handed to him on a silver platter, frequently and accidentally overstepping his boundaries. And what kills me is toward the end game, I, for the first time in forever, cared more about the overarching story than whatever was going on with the characters. I was actually intrigued by the mystery of how this war even began, which never happens. Not to say the overarching story was amazing, but it certainly had me thinking. And while I'm here, let's talk about the main villain. He sucks, straight up. The worst Tales of villain to memory. They do an awful job in building him up. Some dude you just run into several times just to show off how badass he is. He had the makings to elevate the story, but was held back due to the overuse of mystery. You see him slay a bunch of Zeugles, he fights you a few times, and yeah. That's it. We got no motivation, and while there is a connection to our heroes, it was not played up. At all. The world, however, I enjoyed. I like that each realm you visit tackles slavery in a different way. The first area is blatant hard labor. The second has the problem of turning Dahnans against Dahnans. But what made part 1 of the story a slog was once you figured out that realm's deal, it was kind of boring. Like, you just wanted to hit the next story beat rather than go fight your way through this area. Then there is the second half of the game, and oh boy, Bring snacks because it's an interactive movie. Exposition up the wazoo. This is typical of JRPGs where the ending spells everything out, but man, there's just a point where it's only talking to people. Cutscenes, skits, more talking to people, repeat. It's terrible and really imbalances the scenario to gameplay ratio. The combat is something the Tales of series reinvents each iteration, and I gotta say, Arise did a pretty good job with its combat. We have normal attacks linked to the trigger buttons, and arts, which are special attacks that use your AG, or action gauge. It restores over time, or slower if you're attacking. You can weave arts and normal attacks together to create sick combos. Alphen, having the blazing sword, could unleash an extra powerful flame attack at the cost of HP, which I never used, ever. Now it did take me a second to get used to it. I'm not a fan of trigger buttons as a way of attacking. Ultimately, it worked out and it felt good. What I didn't like is you cannot dodge mid-art. If you attack, you're committed, which left me open one too many times, and it led to a lot of combos getting fucked. I understand it's to prevent button mashing, but how I coped was finding arts with the shortest animation and retreating when my AG was empty, then running back. Very hit, very run, very boring. And eventually I was like, hit me bitch, I don't care, I don't give a fuck. Healing arts though, these work differently now. There's a shared pool of CP, or cure points. Any healing or buffing arts pull from the CP pool. CP is also used to help injured souls on the road or to remove obstacles. I don't like this, and we'll get into the reason why later. What makes combat even cooler is the boost gauge, which fills automatically, but attacking or countering fills the gauge faster. When it's full, you unleash a boost attack. Every character has a unique boost attack to deal with specific enemies. Alphen can knock enemies down. Xion can down flying enemies. Dohalim can restrict enemies' movements, etc. If executed correctly, they're super useful and recharge insanely fast. Not only does each character have a unique boost gauge, but you could play as every character, as is tradition in Tales of games. I'm a plain Jane and stuck with Alphen. I dabbled with Kisara because I just love perfect guarding. And I'd say the AI is solid. I didn't have any issues, especially if you take the time to identify an enemy's weakness and customize what arts you want them to use. Sadly, you need to get used to the AI because Arise does not have a multiplayer option like its predecessors. I personally wasn't bothered by this. I'm usually a solo player anyways, so nothing changed for me. Now, overlimit is when a character takes so much damage they can unleash arts at the cost of 0 AG, and they can't be interrupted for a period of time. And they're able to unleash their Mystic Art, an all-powerful attack. While the execution is quick, enemies can take a lot. They are damage sponges. Regular enemies and bosses alike. These suckers last forever, and I believe regular battles should be snappy. Thankfully, they added a boost strike, which appears when the enemy is low on health and your combo counter is high. When strike appears, you could do a boost strike. Two characters come together in an attack that guarantees the monster's death. I also appreciate how quick they are. I never felt the attack animation overstayed its welcome. After battle, you're awarded experience and SP, or skill points. By accomplishing various tasks, you'll unlock titles. These titles come with arts, and passive skills that you can unlock with SP. I love building my character this way. But what I don't like is how cheap Arise is with its skill points. 5 battles and you'll accumulate a meager 50 SP. These suckers cost hundreds and beyond. You'll notice I didn't say after battles you earned any gold, because you don't. The only way to earn it is side quests, finding treasure, or selling items. And let me tell you, shit is fucking expensive. And this is why I hate the CP system. Buying restoratives cost an arm and a leg. Don't get me wrong, resting also restores CP, but do you really want to stop mid-dungeon to go to an inn and have to fight your way back to where you were? I don't think so. This is why I never used Alphen's Burning Sword abilities, because I don't want to use CP on self-inflicted damage. And this train of thought brings me to the most abysmal thing about Tales of Arise, the DLC. When you make camp, there's a DLC marker, which irks me. I hate this little tag that says, hey, DLC costumes. I know what you're thinking. Pell, Tales of always had costumes. You're right. That's not my problem. Not only do I dislike DLC being shoved in my face, but behind paid DLC are arts that are only obtainable through spending real money. And of course, they're the best arts. And they make skill points, experience, item drops, and gold way more obtainable. Let's not forget they also significantly lower the cost of restoratives. Let me tell you, as someone who did not cave and buy that inexcusable DLC package, money is an uphill battle. As for grinding, it's not worth it. And I could say, as tough as it sometimes could get, you don't have to grind. I was level 53 when I fought the level 61 final boss. As long as you fight everything in sight, you'll be good. But that doesn't change how much I hate this practice. So camping. There's usually a peddler nearby to sell you goods. You could check your ranch, which you breed animals, craft weapons, which is the regular way to obtain them. Why do I say this? Because I had to save up money, so I got to the third area while still using my entry-level weapon, expecting to find some new gear in chests. You'll find armor, not weapons. Accessories, also craftable. I didn't mess with this too much. It was too cumbersome for my tastes. While camping, the party chats a little, and before you go to bed, you can cook something to grant the party buffs, and sometimes you'll have the option to grow closer to someone in conversation. Once you reach maximum happiness with them, you'll get a new mystic art, and sometimes you'll get skits while camping, and let's talk about those. The party comes together and talks about the situation at hand, or sometimes it's just a goofy in-between set. And I didn't like them so much, probably because I wasn't invested in any of the characters, not to mention a lot of the time they reiterate what just happened in a cutscene. Rarely did we get a comedic one, and if it was supposed to be funny, I didn't really laugh. But the worst part is, skits are back to back to back. After one cutscene, you're prompted to watch 4 skits before moving on. They need to learn how to space that shit out. And some closing side thoughts, I'm really glad that Tales of Arise introduced fast travel very early on and has an excellent mapping system. Gold star is the main quest, closed envelopes are unanswered side quests, and green stars are to locate the side quest objective. Side quests in this game are pretty lame. Most are fetch quests or defeat this giant Zoogle. Not very exciting, but if you need money in SP, they're worth it. The giant side quests throughout this game are finding owls. The more you find, the more rewards the king owl will give you. Something that has been critiqued quite heavily in the Tales of series is the graphics. For the longest time, it looked like a PlayStation 3 game, but I'm happy to announce that it finally looks like a PS4 game, despite it being on the PS5, and playing it on the PS5. But it's better. Improvement. We love to see it. This is easily the most beautiful a Tales of game has ever looked. I feel like most of the money went into making the environments look pretty or dungeons look mildly interesting. Each realm was vastly different from the last, boasting its unique elemental charm. Fire, snow, and forest. The land actually felt alive. It wasn't a large space with little filling in it. There were levels, off-beaten paths, tucked away fishing spots. It was nice to be able to swim or climb vines, although I wish it was a bit of a smoother transition. Getting in and out of water is an animation, and you can't just jump onto a ladder or vine. Too bad the local Zoogles were all samey looking, no matter which realm you went to. Recolored skins galore. Character designs were alright, like Alphen by far had the most generic suit of armor, with silver anime boy hair. Kisara and Dohalim are probably my favorite, although Dohalim is a Renin, and if you look at all the other Renins, they dress nothing like that. His outfit as a standalone is good, but didn't really match the others. Rinwell and Laws are fine, and Shion is pretty generic. And let's dive more into skits. This is the first time Tales of used the models for skits laid out in the style of a comic book. I hated it. I think it's devoid of charm, and even though their models look better than they ever have, they still had that puppeted look to them. When their jaw moves, it's stiff. The expression in their eyes and their brows look mechanical. I don't know why they didn't continue with drawn animations. I loved those. And it's not like Tales of Arise was a stranger to animated cutscenes. They're sprinkled throughout the adventure, and they're beautiful. I thought they were used appropriately in elevated emotional scenes. Even the opening, gorgeous. Another cool touch was the menu's background changed based on where you're at in the story. And lastly, one of the worst aspects of every Tales of game is the music. Motoi Sakuraba has done music for the Tales of series for years, and that explains why each Tales of soundtrack sucks. They're boring, unmemorable, same sounding. There is nothing that stands out about this man's work. Tales of as a series has my least favorite soundtracks ever. Hate it. Only redeeming thing is their openings, and even some of those can be misses. Tales of Arise has 2, and the first opening is more bombastic and sounds 1,000 times better than the second's somber opening. Aside from music, Tales of has English and Japanese audio. I'm a dub girl for life. Something that irked me is not being fully voice acted lowered the game's quality for me. Not deal breaking, but when chatting with notable NPCs, and instead of hearing the conversation, you get little grunts or exclamations that were off-putting.
Huh? Yes!
Point is, the audio department was lacking, and the best song, since I get a copyright strike for choosing the opening theme, I guess the battle theme is my favorite. Tales of Arise was a disappointment for me. Partially because I only heard how great this game was, and I was completely taken off guard by all these flaws. Another disappointment was it wasn't the Tales of game I needed it to be. They put most of their focus on the graphics and combat and cut corners everywhere else. Skits, swimming and climbing animations, the lack of voice acting, the second half of the game, and most importantly, the characters. Most were pretty one note, and even the main villain was absolute trash, complete garbage, unbelievable, like worst Tales of villain to memory. And the worst thing that will honestly make me stop buying Tales of games altogether is what they lock behind DLC. It's an ugly practice and I'm not going to pay for it. Tales of, while I have a more favorable opinion of the series as a whole, is still not good enough to be pulling this shit. Whew, but ending on a positive note, the game is beautiful, the combat is wonderful, and I really do enjoy how Tales of Arise explored themes of slavery and freedom. Despite some questions I have, I did enjoy the overarching story. Whether or not I recommend this game, I don't. And I hate not recommending a game because just because I don't like it doesn't mean you won't love it. You know yourselves better than I, but if you do decide to play, know that this is not the magnum opus of the Tales of series. That's Tales of Grace's F. Thank you so much for watching. Y'all got me scared to play Dragon Quest XI because everyone only said the good things about that game too. I hope I like it, that's all I gotta say. Anyways, top box is my reviews of Tales of Grace's F, my favorite Tales of game, and the bottom box is my Tales of Berseria review, my second or third favorite Tales of game. I gotta replay Abyss, just to be sure. And please consider supporting me on Patreon. For $1, you're into our lively Discord, $5 gets you early access to videos plus the Discord, and $10 gets you postcards, early access, and into our Discord. Love your faces, and I'll see ya in the next video. Mwah!